Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am so happy it's the month of Halloween, guys, so I'm going to be doing a lot of creepy Halloween type of stories too, guys, so please subscribe if you haven't yet, and let's get on with the story. This story is called Bedtime, Part 1, The Beginning. Bedtime is supposed to be a happy event for a tired child. For me, it was terrifying. While some children might complain about being put to bed before they had finished watching a film or playing with their favorite video games, when I was a child, nighttime was something to truly fear, something in the back of my mind, and it still is. As someone who is trained in sciences, I cannot prove that what happened to me was exactly real, but I swear that what I experienced was genuine horror, a fear in which my life, I gladly say, has never been equally. I will relate to you all now as I best can. Make of it what you will, but I am glad to just get it off my chest. I can't remember exactly when I started, but my comprehensions towards falling asleep seemed to correspond with me being moved into a room of my own. I was 8 years old at the time, and until then I had to share a room quite happily with my older brother, as if perfectly understandable for a 5-year-old boy. My brother eventually wished for a room of his own, and as a result, I was given the room of the back of the house. It was a narrow, yet oddly a long room, large enough for a bed and a couple of chairs and a dresser. As not much else, I couldn't really complain because even at that age I understood that we did not have a large house and I had no real cause to be disappointed. As my family, we both loving caring, I was happily childhood during that day. A solitary window looked out onto the back garden. Nothing out of the ordinary, but even during the day the light which crept into the room seemed almost hesitant. As my brother was given a new bed, I was given the bunk air beds, which we used to share. While I was upset about sleeping on my own, I was excited at the thought of being able to sleep on the top bunk, which seemed as far more adventurous to me. From the very first night, I remember a strange feeling of uneasy creeping slowly from the back of my mind. I laid on the top bunk, staring down at my action figures and cards, staring across the green-blue carpet, as my imaginary battles and adventures took place between the toys on the floor. I couldn't help but feel that my eyes were being slowly drawn towards the bottom bunk, as if someone was moving in the corner of my eye, something in which I was not to have seen. The bunk was empty, impenetrable, made from the dark blue blanket tucked in neatly, pretended covering two rather blanched white pillows. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I was a child, and the noise slipping under my door was from my parents' television, bathing the warm sense of safety and well-being. I fell asleep. When you woken up from a deep sleep of something moving or stirring, it can take a few moments for you truly to understand what is happening. The fog of sleep hung over your eyes and your ears even when you lucid. Something was moving, and there was no doubt about that. At first, I wasn't sure what it was. Everything was dark, almost pitch black, but there was enough light creeping in from the window to outline the narrow, separating room. Two thoughts appeared to my mind almost simultaneously. The first was that my parents were in bed and the rest of the house lay both in darkness and silence. The second, that the noise was a noise which had obviously woken me up. As the last cobweb of sleep it withered from my mind, the noise took a more familiar form, something symbolic of sound that can be more unnerving, a cold wind whistling through the trees outside, a neighborhood footsteps uncomfortably close, or in a case, the simple sound of bed sheets rustling in the dark. That was it! The sheets rustling in the dark. It must have been some disturbed sleeper was attempting to get all too comfortable in the bottom bunk. I lay there in disbelief, thinking that the noise was either my imagination or perhaps just my pet cat finding someone comfortable to sleep the night. It must have been that. I noticed my door shut as it had been as I fell asleep. Perhaps my mom had checked in on me and the cat had snuck into the room then. Yes, that must have been it. I turned to face the wall, closing my eyes in the vain hope that I could fall asleep. As I moved, the rustling noise from underneath me ceased. I thought that I must have disturbed the cat, but quickly I realized that the visitor in the bottom bunk must have less mundus than my pet, just trying to sleep, and much more sinister. As if alerted to the dismay by my presence, the disappointed sleeper began to toss and turn violently like a child having a tantrum in their bed. I could hear the sheets twisting and turning, and the in-season ferocity. Fear of gripping me. I'm not like a sudden sense of unease I had experienced earlier, but now portrayed terrifying. My heart raced as my eyes panicked, scanning the almost impenetrable darkness. I let out a cry. As a young boys do, I intensely shouted on my mother, and I could hear something stirring on the other side of the house, but I began to breathe a sigh of relief that my parents were coming to save me. The bunk bed suddenly started to shake violently, as if gripping by an earthquake. Scraping against the wall, I could hear the sheets below me thrashing around as if tormented by a maleficent. I did not know when to jump down to safety. I feared that the thing in the bottom bunk would reach out and grab me, pulling me into darkness. So I stayed there, with my knuckles clenching my own bedsheet like a assertive protection. The wait seemed like eternity. The door finally opened and thankfully burst open, and I laid there bathing in the light while the bottom of my bunk was resting. Peace, unwanted visitor, lay empty and peaceful. I cried, and my mother consoled me. Tears of fear followed by relief steamed down my face. Yet the thought of the horror and relief, I did not tell her why. I just was upset. I cannot explain it, but it was as thought whatever had been in the bunk would have returned even so much as a spook of it, or other singular sibling of existence. Whatever that was the truth, I do not know, but a child I felt as if an unseen eyes remained closed and listened. My mother laid in the empty bunk and promised to stay there until morning. Eventually, my anxiety diminished. Tiredness pushed me back towards sleep, but I remained restless, walking several times momentarily of the sound of rustling bed sheets. I remember the next day wanting to go anywhere, be anywhere, but the nearest suffocating room. It was sad, and I played outside quite happily with my friends. Although our house was not large, we were lucky to have a long, sloping garden in the back. We played there often as much as it overgrown, and we could hide in the bushes, climb the huge sycamore trees, and towards above all else, and easily imagine ourselves in those grand adventures in some untamed, exotic land. As fun as it was, occasionally my eyes would turn to that small window, ordinary slight and incurious, but for me that was thin boundaries was looking glass was strange cold pocket of dread. Outside, the lush green surrounding of the garden filled with my smiling face, and my friends could not experience the creepy feeling crawling its way my spine. Each of their hair standing on ends, the feeling of something in the room watching me, playing, waiting for the night when I would be alone, eagerly to fill with me with hate. It may sound strange to you, but by the time my parents ushered me back into the room for the night, I said nothing. I didn't protest. I didn't even make an excuse for why I couldn't sleep there. I simply just simply walked into that room, climbed into a few steps into the top bunk, and then waited. As an adult, I would be telling everyone about my experience, but even at that age, I feel almost silly to be talking about something which I really had no evidence for. I would be lying, however, if I said that this was my primary reason. I still felt this thing would be engaged if I must have spoken of it. It's funny how certain words can remain hidden from your mind, no matter how blatant and obvious they are. The one came to me the second night. lying there in the darkness alone, frightened away and rotting change in the atmosphere, a thickening of the air and something had displaced it. As I heard the first casual twist of the bed sheets below, the first anxiety increased, my heartbeat, and the releasing that something was once again in the barn bunk. The word which had been sent into exile, filtering throughout the conscience, breaking free of all represents, gasping for the screaming itching of craving itself into the mind. Ghost. Hey guys, so since the story is so long, I will be doing this in 2 parts. So next week we'll have a continuation of the story, guys. I'll see you guys in my next video.